right, welcome back to yet another episode of Hank Hacks Hackers. This is your boy Hank Hackerson. Today we're going to be talking about the unified kill chain, which is kind of like an upgraded version of the cyber kill chain. We did the cyber kill chain in a different video. We are using tryhackme as per usual. If you don't have a membership, go ahead and make sure to get yourself one. This is one of the subscriber-based rooms, so this is not a free room. But I mean, you're going to get a lot of content in this particular video. The link in the description below will get you a discount on your membership with tryhackme, and you can go ahead and use all of the other rooms that they have and the virtual machines that they can use, and you can hack to all those, so on and so forth. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So like, subscribe, share, comment, turn on the notification bell whenever you so that you can get notified the next time that we drop something. And yeah, I'm gonna just jump right into it. So this is the previous one, the cyber kill chain. So recon, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, C2, which is command and control, and then action on the objectives, right? So that was the cyber kill chain. Now what we're doing is we're gonna be using the kind of a little bit of an upgraded version, I guess, which is the UKC, the Unified Kill Chain Framework, that's used to understand how cyber attacks actually occur, right? So understanding why frameworks such as UKC are important is the objective of the room. Using UKC to understand an attacker's motivation, understanding the various phases of the UKC, and discovering that the UKC is a framework that's used to complement other frameworks such as the MITRE attack framework, and of course the cyber kill chain. So that's the introduction of this room. So let's talk about what a kill chain actually is according to the UKC. So originated from the military, a kill chain is a term that's used to explain the various stages of an attack. So in the realm of cybersecurity, it's used to describe the methodology and path that attackers use, or hackers, or APTs, advanced persistent threat groups, to approach and intrude a target. So for example, scanning and exploiting a web vulnerability and escalating privileges will be a kill chain. We'll come to explain these stages in detail in the rest of the room, but the object is to understand the attacker's kill chain so that defensive measures can be put into place to either preemptively protect the system or disrupt an attack from happening, or stopping it in its tracks, so on and so forth. So where does the kill chain come from? For this answer, you must fill in the blank. The military? Is that it? Yeah, okay. So the kill chain comes from the military. Easy answer. All right, moving on. What is threat modeling? This is an important one. It's a cybersecurity context. It's a series of steps to ultimately improve the security of a system. So you want to model the threat so that you can kind of guess where things are going to go before they actually happen. So identifying what systems and applications need to be secured, what function they serve in the environment. Is it critical to normal operations? Is it holding sensitive information like payment information? What we talked about in the last video where Target got hacked and all the credit cards and debit cards were stolen. Assessing what vulnerabilities and weaknesses these systems and applications have and how they could be potentially exploited. Creating a plan of action to secure these systems, and putting in policies to prevent these vulnerabilities from occurring again, if possible. For example, implementing software development's lifecycle for an application, or training employees so that they're aware that, hey, they're the weakest link in the chain and they need to not fall victim to a lot of different types of attacks. So threat modeling is an important procedure in reducing the risk within a system or application, as it creates a high-level overview of the organization's assets and the procedures to resolve those vulnerabilities. The UKC, Unified Kill Chain, can encourage threat modeling, as the UKC framework helps identify potential attack surfaces and how these systems can be exploited. There is STRIDE, there's DREAD, there's CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, to name a few, and all are frameworks specified to specifically used to model threats, threat modeling. If you're interested to learn more, you can go ahead to the Principles of Security room on tryhackme. So what is the technical term for a piece of software or hardware in IT? And that is an asset. Okay, moving on. Introducing the unified kill chain. This is a much longer list than what we saw earlier in the cyber kill chain. So to continue from the previous task, the UKC, published in 2017, aims to complement, not compete with other cybersecurity kill chain frameworks such as the Lockheed Martin cyber kill chain or the MITRE attack framework. The UKC states that there are 18 phases to an attack instead of just, I think it was 7 or 8 in the other one, right? Everything from recon to exfiltration and understanding the attacker's motive. These phases have been grouped together in this room into a few areas of focus for brevity, which will be detailed later on. And some benefits of the UKC over traditional cybersecurity kill chain frameworks include the fact that it is modern and extremely detailed. Remember that it has 18 phases where the other frameworks have a handful. So step 1 is recon, researching, identifying, and selecting targets. And you could do either active or passive reconnaissance. Then there's weaponization, preparing activities aimed at setting up the infrastructure required for the attack. Then there's delivery in the transmission of a weaponized object to the targeted environment. Social engineering techniques used to manipulate people and perform unsafe actions. Exploitation is exploiting vulnerabilities in the systems that may result in code execution or a bunch of other things. Persistence is to access and do either change or do anything that gives an attacker persistent presence, meaning you just stay on the system, stay in their network. Defense evasion, so you want to avoid being detected, essentially. Command and control is to communicate with controlled systems within a target network from a completely separate location. Pivoting is when you gain access and now you go through a controlled system to other systems that are not directly accessible. So you go from one system to another, you pivot from one system to another. Discovery allows an attacker to gain knowledge about a system and its network environment. So discovery is similar to recon, but now you're in the network, right? Privilege escalation takes you from one user to another user that has higher permissions on a system. Execution is you finally execute your attack or control code on a local or remote system. Credential access is you want to access or gain control over their system or their domain credentials or their service credentials, which gives you even higher privileges, right? Lateral movement allows you to move horizontally. And so this could actually be done essentially around this time as well. Pivoting is kind of a form of lateral movement, and then you escalate privileges and you just kind of repeat this. You could rinse and repeat this until you have maximum privileges. Then once you've gotten the highest level of privilege that you can, you start collecting, so you identify and gather data from a target network, and then you exfiltrate. You identify and gather the data, and then you transfer out. You export the data from the target network, and now you can manipulate, interrupt, or destroy the target system or their data, and you finally achieve your objectives, which could be a number of different things, right? So this is a much more detailed version of the cyber kill chain, and you can kind of see why. It's pretty obvious, right? So the benefits of the UKC comparing to other frameworks, this is more recent, so it was in 2017, and there's an update that happened in 2022. The MITRE MITRE attack was released in 2013, and the cyber kill chain was I think in 2011 from Lockheed Martin. The UKC is extremely detailed, as you can see. The UKC covers an entire attack from recon, exploitation, post-exploitation, and even identifying their motivation. Other frameworks cover just the overview kind of a thing. UKC highlights a much more realistic attack scenario. Various stages will often reoccur. For example, after exploitation, they can begin their reconnaissance, as we already talked about. Other frameworks don't account for stuff like that. So in what year was the unified kill chain released? It's 2017. According to the UKC, how many phases are there to an attack? That's 18. What is the name of the attack phase where an attacker employs techniques to evade detection? And the technical name is defense evasion. And what is the name of the attack phase? Where an attacker employs techniques to remove data from a network. That's exfiltration. And what is the name of the attack phase? Where an attacker achieves their objectives. And that's objectives, right? There we go. All right, so let's kind of start from the first section of these things, which is phase in the initial foothold. And so let's look at this a little bit, right? So it starts with recon, weaponization, delivery, social engineering, exploitation, persistence, evasion, command and control, and then pivoting. That's your foot in the door. That's basically what this is. Your foot in the door, you do recon, either passive or active recon, weaponize, deliver, social engineering, exploit, persistence, evade the defenses, command and control, and now pivot while you're in the system. You can start moving around and trying to find other things. So this series of phases also accommodates for an attacker creating a form of persistence, such as files or process that allows the attacker to connect to a machine at any time after the initial exploitation. And the UKC accounts for the fact that attackers will often use a combination of the tactics listed above. So recon, MITRE tactic TA0043, it can be discovering what systems and services are running on the target. This information is very useful in weaponization and exploitation, finding contact lists or list of employees that can be impersonated or manipulated, looking for potential credentials that could be of use in later stages for pivoting or initial access, and understanding the network topology and other network systems that can be used to pivot to. Then you have weaponization, the phase of an attack that describes the adversary setting up the necessary infrastructure to perform the attack. It could be a command and control server, a system capable of catching reverse shells and delivering payloads to the system. Social engineering, which is it's targeting the weakest link in the chain, which is the human that's involved in any company infrastructure. And it's basically to manipulate employees to perform actions that will aid in the adversary's attack. For example, getting a user to open a malicious attachment, impersonating a web page, and then they enter their credentials into it, calling or visiting the target, or impersonating a user, for example, requesting a password reset, or being able to gain access there. I can't tell you how many buildings I've gotten into just because somebody was leaving and I was coming in, and I just smiled at them or kind of cracked a joke or accidentally bumped into them, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And they didn't say anything. And it's a building that requires a key card to enter, and simply just because they were walking out and I was walking in, they even held the door for me. You know, it's kind of crazy, and they don't even think about it. Nobody talks about these types of things. And I could have been a really, really malicious person, and they just opened the door for me and let me go in. It's pretty crazy. Exploitation. So the phase of the attack describes how an attacker takes advantage of weaknesses or vulnerabilities present in a system, and the UKC defines exploitation as abuse of vulnerabilities to perform execution of code. So uploading and executing a reverse shell, interfering with automated script on the system to execute the code. So for example, schedule tasks or automatic startup tasks, abusing the web application vulnerability to execute code on the system. And then once you're in there, you got persistence, which is basically you stay in the system. That's what persistence means. So you can create a service on the target system that allows you to just log back in. You can access the target system through a command and control server where the commands could be executed remotely. So you put a Raspberry Pi into the building and you put it inside the light switch section. You just kind of unscrew the light switch, plug it into the power right behind the light switch, and now you have a tiny little computer that you can log into at any point that's connected to the local internet. Pretty crazy. Defense evasion is one of the most valuable phases of the UKC. This specifically is used to understand the techniques an adversary uses to evade defensive measures, which is the firewalls, the network firewalls, antivirus systems, intrusion detection systems. All of these things are defense systems. And if you learn how to evade these things, it's very useful for an attacker. Command and control is the phase of the UKC that allows the weaponization, or it's made available during the weaponization stage, and it allows them to come back and just execute commands, steal more data, or use the control server to pivot and go to other systems in the network, which is finally here, the technique an adversary uses to reach other systems within a network, it's called pivoting. For example, they are not exposed to the internet, right? So it's a private system that is not readily scannable or findable during the recon phase, but you can find it when you're inside the network. So if they gain access to a web server that's publicly accessible, and then they attack other systems that are within the same network, but they're not accessed via the internet. So that's very important. So what is an example of a tactic to gain a foothold using emails? Phishing. Impersonating an employee to request a password reset is a form of social engineering. An adversary setting up a command and control server infrastructure is what phase of the unified kill chain? Weaponization. There we go. Okay. Exploiting a vulnerability present on a system is what phase of the unified kill chain? Exploitation. Moving from one system to another is an example of pivoting, right? Leaving behind a malicious service that allows the adversary to go back is called persistence. Okay, very good. So now, this was the in phase, so getting your foot in the door, so to speak. And now we're going to go to the through phase. So you go from pivoting, that's where we pick up. You do more discovery while you're inside the system, privilege escalation, execution, credentialed access, lateral movement, and you get access to what you finally wanted. So this is the through phase. So pivoting is once the attacker accesses the system, they would use it as their staging site and a tunnel between their C2 operations and their victim's network. The system would also be used as a distribution point for all malware and backdoors at later stages. Discovery would uncover information about the system and the network that is connected to. Within the stage, the knowledge base would be built from the active user accounts, permissions, applications, software in use, web browser activity files, directories, and network shares and configurations of the system. Then you have privilege escalations, and you want to gain access ultimately to root system or root privileges. But there's also the local admin. There's a user account that has admin-like access to certain files or other systems. And then there's the user account with specific access for functions, right? So this is the highest, and then you want to kind of work your way up until you get access to that thing. And then you have execution, when the adversary sets up their attack infrastructure. Once the attacker has access to the system, they would use it as their staging site and a tunnel between their command operations and the victim's network. The system would also be used as a distribution point for all malware and backdoors at a later stage. And weaponized payloads, this is where they deploy their malicious code using Pivot System as their host. Remote Trojans, C2 scripts, malicious links, scheduled tasks are all deployed and created to facilitate a recurring presence on the system and uphold that presence. This is called execution. Credentialed access is working hand in hand with privileged escalation. The adversary would attempt to steal account names and passwords through various methods, including keylogging, credential dumping. This makes it harder to detect them during their attacks as they would be using legitimate credentials. Oof. And then lateral movement. With the credentials and elevated privileges, the adversary would seek to move through the network and jump onto the targeted system to achieve their primary objective. The stealthier the technique used, the better. So as a SOC analyst, you pick up numerous alerts pointing to failed login attempts from an administrator account. What stage of the kill chain would an attacker be seeking to achieve? This is likely privilege escalation. That is true. Mimikatz, known as an attack tool, was detected running on the IT manager's computer. What is the mission of the tool? Credential dumping is what Mimikatz does. It dumps password files or hashes and stuff like that. It's a pretty useful tool actually. Okay, and then so you're through the system, right? Now you want to get out of the system, and this is the last phase of the UKC. This phase wraps up the journey of an adversary's attack on an environment. They have critical access, they've fulfilled their attacks and goals, and it's usually geared towards compromising the confidentiality, integrity, and availability triad, CIA. So collection, after all the hunting for access and assets, the adversary will seek to gather all the valuable data of interest, then compromises the confidentiality of the data, and it would lead to the next stage, which is exfiltration. And they can use drives, browsers, audio, video, email, all that stuff to exfiltrate the data. And so to elevate their compromise, the adversary would seek to steal data which would be packaged using encryption measures and compression to avoid any detection, because you don't want to know where it's being sent to, right? The C2 channel and tunnel deployed in the earlier phases will come in handy during this process. And then there's the impact, right? So if they want to compromise the integrity and availability of the data, they would manipulate, interrupt, or destroy these assets. The goal would be to disrupt business and operational processes, and may involve removing account access, wiping disks, encrypting certain data, such as ransomware, defacing, and of course, denial of service, basically crashing the system so that there's no accessible from any way, that from any place they can't access anything. And finally, achieving their objectives. So with all that power, the adversary would seek to achieve their strategic goal of the attack. For example, if they were financially motivated, they may seek to encrypt the files with ransomware and ask for payment to release the data. And then they could seek to damage the reputation of the business and release private and confidential information to the public. That's happened a lot. So while monitoring the network as a SOC analyst, you realize that there's a spike in the network activity and all the traffic is outbound to an unknown IP address. What stage could this possibly be? And I'm gonna say that's exfiltration. They're exfiltrating data. Personally identifiable information, also known as PII, has been released to the public by an adversary, and your organization is facing scrutiny for the breach. What part of the CIA triad would be affected by this? And I would say confidentiality. That's what's being affected. So now let's go to the practical example here. So we're gonna view the site. And so it says deploy the static site attached to the task. You'll need to match various actions of an attacker to the correct phase of the unified kill chain to reveal the flag. Okay, let's see. The attacker uses tool to gather information about a system. This is recon. The attacker installs a malicious script to allow them to remote access at a later date. This would be persistence. The hacked machine is being controlled from an attacker's own service. That's command and control. The attacker uses the hacked machine to access other servers on the same network. That would be pivoting. The attacker steals a database and sells it to a third party. That's probably action and objective. And here is our flag. And just like that, we have completed this. And so let's see. The conclusion of the UKC room is, so congrats on making it. Hopefully you understand what's going on. As mentioned in this room, it's a modern extension of other frameworks such as Lockheed Martin Cyber Kill Chain. If you're interested in learning more, you can do Principle of Security, Pentesting Fundamentals, and of course the Cyber Kill Chain. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we have completed the room, and the unified kill chain is what we just went through. I actually found this pretty useful. It was nice. It was a good one. I think we went through it pretty quickly, and this was one of the paid rooms in tryhackme. So if nothing else, you're getting access to information that's only available to paid subscribers. But I highly recommend you get your own subscription, because apart from just information, there's machines that you can access and hack into, and there's attack boxes that you can access. So use the link in the description below, and you'll go ahead and get yourself a discount on the paid membership, and then you can begin your activities and start doing some really, really cool things. It's your boy Hank Hackerson, Hank Hacks Hackers, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, turn on the notification bell, all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next video. Peace, love, and chicken grease. Talk to you soon.